Hello, my name is Dan Humberg. I represent harvestfires.com. If you're watching this, you're probably involved in some aspect of the installation, or at least considering the installation of a Firestop kit on a combine harvester. This particular instructional video involves the preparation of the tin set for a Case IH model combine. In this case, it's the 9250, particularly the 9250 in the 2022 and 2023 and perhaps later model years. The video will show you how to take the flat tin pieces and bend the flanges on them so that they will assemble into the enclosure that goes around the exhaust turbine and the exhaust pipe components of the combine harvester. It shows you how to bend those up, and it will probably also show you how to assemble those on the bench so that you can see the enclosure as it's in its shape, where it would go onto the combine. It also gives you a chance to run the screws into the holes and prep the holes for the screws so that they go together easily when you get on the combine. Before we start with the actual steps to bend the tin set, I want to talk a little bit about tools and what it takes to do that. In order to do that, I'll get you to look down on the bench here. I have a series of tools that I use to bend the flanges on the tin. Probably the first one, the one I probably used as much as anything else, is this one. It's a 6-inch sheet metal tool. I bought this one at Harbor Freight. It probably cost $15 or $16 there. If you have a store like that and you want one, you can certainly buy one there. You don't have to use this. In fact, most of the bends in the tin set you could probably do with your hands. Let me show you a piece of the tin. The tin is 24 gauge galvanized, so it's fairly light and malleable steel. It also has, wherever we want it to bend, we have a perforated cut made. The laser cuts a very thin line through the tin in a dotted line fashion so that it'll want to bend on that line, preferentially bend on that line. And so that's the way that all of the perforations or all of the bends are made here. So you can do it frequently with your hands, especially smaller pieces like these flanges you can bend over by hand. Some of the longer ones, it's helpful to have tools. So I use this 6-inch sheet metal tool. I have a 3-inch one that's a vice grip version. I think I bought that at Runnings. I do have a longer one here. This is a sheet metal tool where the 1-inch flanges fit in a slot on the edge, like that. And then you can line the edge of the tool up with the perforations and bend it quite easily in a long straight line. That's handy. I bought this one on Amazon for, I don't know, 15 bucks or 16 bucks. It was on sale. You don't need that. I actually will ship you probably in your kit. If I'm sending you flat pieces, I'll send you a 6-inch chunk of one of these so that you can use that as a way to bend many of the flanges as well. So if you wonder what that thing is, it's in the toolkit. That's what it is. I also keep a sheet metal shear tool around. You probably don't need it to do this part of the work, but you may need it on the combine. Sometimes there's some part that doesn't fit perfectly, or the laser didn't join two things quite completely, and you may need to make a small cut. Sometimes you need to trim a little bit around one of the places where something perforates the box, such as the oil line to the turbo bearing. Those tend to shift or move a little bit in their assembly, and so sometimes you end up trimming the tin, and you need a good sheet metal shear or whatever we call this tool. Sheet metal shears for doing that. This one tends to cut left-hand corners okay. It's not so good on right-hand corners, or the other way around, I forget. Anyway, have one of those around. I have one other tool that I sometimes use. I don't know that I necessarily need it on this particular set, but it is a tool that I made up. It's made up of a scrap piece of angle iron, in this case 1-inch by 1-inch, 1/8-inch thick angle iron. It's just what I happen to have handy. And then a piece of strap. This again is whatever I had around. It's 1.5 inch by 3/16, I think. I have a single bolt through each end to hold those two together so that the edge of the strap lines up with the corner on the angle iron, and I can slip a piece of tin that has a long bend in it, a long flange. I can slip it in between these two, and I happen to have a vise on the corner of the bench here. I can set it in that vise, clamp it tight in the middle, tighten up the bolts if necessary on the end, and then fold the sheet over that to make a nice clean bend on one or two bends that are really long in the kit, and it makes for a clean square bend. You can do that if you want. Most of you probably have this kind of stuff sitting in the scrap bin, and you can make one up in about 10 minutes. But you don't necessarily need it. You can do it without it. It just makes for sharper, cleaner bends to have something like this. Okay, I think that's what I need to say. The other thing that I usually do before we start bending the tin is to give kind of a cautionary statement. The Firestop kit prevents fires on your combine by isolating the hottest components of the exhaust system so that the volatile dusts that are produced in some crops, sunflowers are the poster child for that, but it also occurs in safflower and canola sometimes, and peas, lentils, things like that produce these dusts that are very volatile. And this system prevents the fire by pressurizing the area right around the hot components with clean filtered air so that none of that dust can fight its way into the exhaust components that would ignite it. It does that very well, but I cannot guarantee that you will never ever have a fire on your combine because there are just too many other possible sources of ignition to say that it would never occur. You can get a fire from a hot bearing, from an electrical short, from an alternator that throws sparks, from a friction point where you get material wrapped around a shaft or something like that. So I can't do anything about those, but this will stop the chronic fires that occur around the exhaust components. So having said that, let's go on to how to bend the tin up for the 2022 and later model years of the Case IH 9250 combine. I'm going to start with piece number 1. All of these pieces have a part number cut in them. This one says C95 with an underscore 1 here. That's my shorthand for Case 9250, and then the part number is actually the underscore 1 that says 1. This particular part is how we attach to the combine. It's got holes that will match up to some, the Case put a box around the exhaust manifold, a stainless steel box around the exhaust manifold in 2022, and that's why we're doing this new design of tin. We'll pull some of their bolts for that, temporarily pull these off and use those bolts to hold this piece onto that enclosure. This one is going to go around the exhaust turbine, comes through right here, and so that's what this piece is. It's got two flanges. It's actually got this long inch-wide flange in the back, and it has a flange along about 1.5 inch or 2-inch flange along this edge here. So we're looking at the face that has the numbers that read correctly. I'm going to take this long flange and I'm going to bend it up 90 degrees, and then I'm also going to take this wider flange on this side and bend it up 90 degrees. Now that's going to leave us with kind of a narrow strip here, but that's the way this piece is. There we go, two flanges bent 90 degrees up from the face that says C95-1, and that piece is ready to mount. Part number 2, it says C95-2 on this flange. This piece is going to go underneath the turbocharger bearing. It's going to go, I believe, like, I'm going to take it with the, well, we can do it either one of two ways. We can do it like this. When you're looking at the face where the numbers read right side up, C95-2, 1, 2, 3, 4 flanges, all bend down away from us 90 degrees. Okay, piece number 2. C95-2, 1, 2, 3, 4 flanges bent down away from the face with the numbers on them. Piece number 3, C95-3 in this flange. Looking at the part this way with the numbers read right side up. This flange, this flange, this flange all bend 90 degrees away from this face or down. 1. Okay, that part's ready to go together. C95-3. All right, we're looking at part number 4 from this side with the numbers that read correctly or right side up. I already bent this one up once, so I'm reshooting this. One of the benefits of video is that you can always edit your mistakes and do them again. I wish life was that way. But in this case, I bent the flanges the wrong direction, had the part a little disoriented from where it should have been. This part is going to fit up underneath part number 2, I think it is. This is part number 2, and we're going to use this one as a template. This piece is going to fit here, and the holes will line up. This hole up here is actually where your hard line for the turbocharger oil for the bearing comes up through here and over the top, and then this hole here is where the oil returns back down to the crankcase. So we're going to take this wide flange, about 3 inches wide. We're going to bend it up like that, excuse me, to where it matches that corner right there. And then this flange with the upside down part number in it, or the part number says it's the opposite side of where the numbers read correctly. But this flower petal cut here will help you identify it. Goes up against this hole, and that gets a small bend. So that it fits right up against the bottom of part number 2. And that'll help you know that you've got the angles correct and everything there. So that's part number 4 fit in under part number 2. Okay. You can, if you misbend one of these, you can bend these flanges back and forth 2 or 3 times before they start to get brittle and would break. But they'll tolerate a couple of misbends before we. So if you don't get it right the first time, it's possible to straighten things out. Part number 4. Number 5 is going to go inside of part number 4 or match up to it, so it'll be the same angles. It's just a strip. It would seem like it's foolish to make it in 2 pieces, but it'll make it easier to get into to where it has to be on the combine when you do this. So this one's going to just fit in this one. Let's see if I did that right or not. I did that wrong. In this case, I'm looking at C95-5, and that's this flange, the part number. It reads right side up to you there. Bend the flanges, these flanges up this way so that the holes match up with part number 4. The tool makes a nice crisper corner and less rounding in the corner than my hands do. There. There, those holes match up now and that part's bent correctly. Part number 5. Now we're going to come back with part number, I did part number 5. I will do part number 6. This is part number 6 read correctly on this flange here, this 1-inch flange. I'm going to flip it over so it's upside down, so the numbers are kind of upside down now. It is also going to mate up to part number 2. This is part number 2 that we used as a pattern a little while ago. This one will go up underneath it, and this flange will bend up to match the angle of this one, and the flower petal cut will line up with this little half moon cut out here for your return oil line to go through. So first I'll bend this flange. not quite 90 degrees. That's closer than that. There. That's about the right angle on that. Your oil return line is going to come down through this hole, and that's why I've cut these, whatever you want to call them, radius cuts, flower petal cuts. You can take a needle nose pliers if you need to and bend those down. In this case, I would bend them down because that's going to bend them out of the bottom of the enclosure. What I really would like is to have a flat face of the steel paralleling that oil line and not have this hard, sharp edge that the laser leaves. It's not so sharp, but it's very hard because the laser cut through it and made it hot and heat treated it, so it's hard. I don't want that to touch your oil line, because the vibration between that and the oil line could damage the oil line and theoretically cut through it, and then you'd lose your engine oil out of that hole, so we don't want to do that. So you bend these down just enough so that when you test fit this, that you should have clearance around that oil line all the way around so we aren't touching it, and then any pedal that did touch it would touch it with a flat face rather than the edge face. Then we can tighten up around that with some of that stainless or aluminum foil tape that I provide with the kit if we need to prevent too much air from escaping around that hole for that oil line. But that's part number 5. We also have the same kind of thing that occurs back here for the hard line that goes up through. Again, you don't want to have the tin touching that and vibrating against it. So both of those, you can bend those flower petals in a direction, either out or sometimes they're bent in, but mostly they're bent out of the box to parallel that line rather than go against it with the sharp edge. So part number 6. Part number 7, this little piece is going to fit in here. I'm just checking to make sure the holes line up so that I know I've got it right. This piece was piece number 6 that we just did. This will probably go on top of this one like this, and it's got 3 flanges. We're going to bend the one with I've got the part number right side up here. Now I'm flipping it over so the numbers are upside down. I'm going to bring this flange up 90 degrees. I'm going to bring this little one here up 90 degrees. And then I'm going to take this 3/8 inch wide one, and maybe that's a good chance to use this tool. This tool has a 3/8 inch slot on the back side too. And hold that. I'm going to bend that one back over the other way. So I kind of have a Z bend in this one. There we go. Part number 7 with kind of got this, whatever, we got a Z bend in it. The 3/8 inch flange bent this way, the 1 inch one on the bottom of the part numbers bent over this way, and this other one bent like a ramp. Okay. Again, I'm looking at the part number read correctly upside or right side up like this, with this one bent over that way, and this one bent over that way, and then the little one bent the opposite way. Okay, part number 7. Part number 8. There, that's the way the part reads correctly. This one, we're going to bend. We've got this long line here of perforations and about a 2-inch flange here with a little one on the edge. I'm going to take this one and bend him probably about 45 degrees along that whole long line. I think if we go back to part number 4, this one says part number 4 right there. We can use this one as a template for that bend. I think that the angle on this one should match this angle back here between these 2 long flanges. So if we make the angle to fit those same angle, then we should be good. A little bit more. And the holes line up in those two. Well, take that back. There's a piece in between, but the angle should line up with that. So that's part number 8. And I've got this 3/8 inch wide flange along here. I'm going to use this tool, but you can do it with smaller tools as well. Slide this in here. And I'm going to bend that just enough to make it perpendicular to this face. So between these two bends, we get a kind of a 90 degree bend in total. And this little thing here, this is where, sorry, let me get that cord out of the way. This little hole here, you have an actuator that comes up to actuate the choke and the system right after your exhaust turbine. There's an arm that comes up through here, and it'll have to slide up in there a little bit and shift a little bit as it runs through its range of motion. This tab can be bent up. I really don't want to bend it up right now a lot because I don't want to bend it back and forth too many times. But when you install this, you can bend this up to be able to slide this in place to get that arm through there and then push it back down in place. And ideally, if we got this perfectly designed, that arm would not make any contact in here when it runs up and down through there. When you put it on the machine, you're probably going to want to test fit this once, check that, reach under and push on that arm and make sure it goes up through so that it clears this, because it has to have freedom of motion to be able to do what it does. And if it hits this in any place when this is installed in place, that's where you get out your tin snips and you enlarge this hole just a little bit wherever necessary to accommodate that arm. The tin I'm folding up right now is actually a prototype set. I'm going to hopefully test fit this on a 9250, and if it doesn't, if I don't have that hole in exactly the right place, I'll shift it on the design, and hopefully the tin you get is cut so that it fits well. But if it doesn't for any reason, let's say you got something shifted a little on your installation or whatever, you can always cut this hole a little bit larger to accommodate that actuator, but we can't interfere with the range of motion of that little arm or that actuator because it actually manages the exhaust temperature of the exhaust going up to the diesel oxidation catalyst. So that's part number 8. Has this bend up here to match part number 4, and then another bend down below here of this 3/8 inch flange to make it 90 degrees to this big face. This is part number 9. Reads correctly here 9. I'm going to flip that over so it's upside down. And this piece only has one flange to bend really on it, this long inch wide one here. And that's going to bend. It doesn't come quite 90 degrees. It actually will match, it should match the angle of this corner on part number, back to part number 2. So if I put this on here like this, and bend this flange up to match this face, you'd have the angle correct. There, I hit that one right on. Most of these bends, if you don't get the angle just perfect, you can adjust it by hand, either now or when you assemble it on the bench or when you get on the machine, you can adjust them a little bit too. I will point out that there are these 4 little tabs on the back of this piece, and what I'm trying on this one is that when you assemble this is piece number 8 that we just did before, there are 4 slots in that, right at the edge of this 3/8 inch flange on the bottom, and when we assemble this, we should be able to push these 2 together, slide that in like this, and then bend those, reach under and bend those 4 tabs down or around towards us to lock these pieces together. It's very difficult to get screws in this location back here, and I thought it would be easier to try this with tabs. When you do the assembly, you could probably bend these down a little bit so they point down, and then when we slide it together, we slide the piece in there and get those tabs started in those 4 holes, and put it together like that, and then reach under and bend the tabs to lock it. So that's part number 9. One other thing I'll point out is there's a slot here. This is supposed to fit around a support bracket for the right end of the exhaust pipes. There's a bracket about, it's about 10 gauge metal probably, that comes off the block and supports the elbow underneath the end of the exhaust pipe before it goes up to the diesel oxidation catalyst. Ideally, I've got this cut so it'll slide right in there. In practice, sometimes either I've got it measured 1/8 of an inch wrong, or something that's very difficult to measure some of those things on the machine. If I have that off a little bit, again, that's a place where you could end up trimming this hole a little bit deeper or a little bit wider in order to accommodate that flange. If you end up with a larger hole there, then I encourage you again to reach under with some of that aluminum foil tape or reach inside here with the tape. You can do it either from on top or bottom, or if you can reach it, and tighten up the space around that support bracket. What we would like is for the box to be tight enough so that the air kind of is forced to flow to all parts of it, and not dump out 1 or 2 large holes and then leave the rest of it without any pressure inside. So this is part number 9, ready to go. Part number 10 reads correctly this way, C9510. This is the end, the end of the thing farthest away from the radiator fan. It has a number of flanges. Let's see what we can do about those. Well, some of them are easy to do. This one with the part number read correct right side up, so it reads C9510. That flange and this flange will bend 90 degrees away from us. The long flange on this side will bend 90 degrees away from us. The little one down here will bend 90 degrees away from us. And this one on the bottom will bend 90 degrees away from us. So let's do those first, and we'll talk about the remaining ones. Okay, we've got a flange back here that's about 1/2 inch, and then another one that is 1/2 inch outside here. As I recall, if I recall correctly, this one here, this 1/2 inch wide flange in the back, which I can grab with this tool, will bend down away from us, but about 45 degrees, I think. Trying to picture the tin in my mind. That's going to bring it back into to just come up against the end of the block. And then this last little one down here will bend the rest of the way over 90, I believe. So that between those two bends we get a 90 out of the combination of them. And this hole should line up with, oh, I forget, it might be, I believe it'll line up with this hole in the back of part number 8. In fact, there's an angle on the back on the edge of part number 8 here that will actually help you get the angle correct on part number 10. So you can use this little angle here as a template to bend this flange over on the end of part number 10. And then this little one bends around, and the hole will line up with the one here in this, back in this, right there. That'll be more apparent when we put these pieces together. So those are all the bends on part number 10. This is part number 11, C9511. I'm going to pull part 10 back, because this is going to be kind of the template for bending part 11. We have this jog in this one here. I'm looking at the number, part C9511, that will match up, or that flange will match up with this 2.5 inch wide section down here. So we can bend that to match like this. It's only about 10 degrees or so. do like that. And there, I did that. I guess I did that correctly. That will lie on there like that. I got it bent just a little bit too much. It's really not much of a bend. There we go. And this one up on the top has no holes in it. It's just a blank flange. You can bend that one up this way, away from the face, or up from the face that says 11 in it here, just a little bit. That one's going to spring load against the side of the diesel oxidation catalyst. Doesn't require any fasteners, but we don't want to bend it too much. We'll let that one press against the side of that can. Now there's one other bend here. There's this set of dotted lines into this double hole. You can bend that out a little bit now if you want to, but that's really, we got two sensor lines from the exhaust system that are going to come out of here. And so we'll bend this open enough to slide this in place and get those sensor lines through there, and then you'll bend it back down. And then you're going to use some of that foil tape to tighten up the space around those sensor lines, and that'll have two purposes. One, keep the air from leaking out here in a big way. And second, it also can kind of isolate or immobilize those sensor lines right in the middle of this hole so they don't vibrate, or this doesn't vibrate near them. So, okay. Part number 11. Oh, one other bend on here. Let's see, what does that one do? I'm not sure I'm going to do anything with that one right now. That one might just overlap another piece. If we need to bend it, we'll bend it. You can bend it by hand later. So leave that little flange alone for right now. Part number 12. We're looking at the face with the 12 on it here. C9512. I got 1 flange, 2 flanges, 3 flanges, 4 flanges. I'm going to take this long one with the little half moon cut out on down here. I'm going to bend that one away from this face, bend it down 90 degrees. It has a tapered piece comes up against it. It's hard to make that bend tight at 90 degrees. You're going to need a pliers or a tool to do that last part of that one. So that one goes that way. I believe that the one with the number in it bends also away from this face. Bend it down 90 degrees. And the other two, this one and this one, I'm going to bend out towards us 90 degrees. Okay, so that's part number 12. The flange with the number in it and the one opposite it bend down. The other two in between here bend up 90 degrees, and that's ready to go. This is part number 13. The number is here, down here. This one has a wide flange up here. That one, I think all along this, we're going to bend this away, this wide flange. Again, we're looking at the face with the numbers right side up. I'm going to take that flange, I'm going to bend it down, but not 90 degrees, just probably about 20 degrees, something like that. This also, it's the same bend in it. And I believe this one will bend up 90 degrees. Now we can adjust the angle on this. Well, for now we'll leave that as it is. Here we go. If we go back to part number 12, this angle here will match up to the bend on this piece. So I haven't got it bent quite enough there. It's going to be closer to 45 degrees. Pretty easy to do. That was a little too much. There, that's close enough for now. And these holes will line up with that one. So there's a template there, and part number 12 can be the template for bending this angle on part number 13. This other little strip here with the perforation, that's another one of those we're going to temporarily bend. You have a pneumatic line from your wastegate actuator on the turbocharger that has to come out of here. It's a rubber, black rubber line. And so we'll open this up enough when we put it, do the installation, to fit that line through there, and then fold it back down closed, and you can bend these. You can do that now too. We can bend these little points on here down, just so you don't hurt yourself. There, like that. And then we'll tape over that again to immobilize that rubber line in the middle of that hole and limit the air loss around it. That's part number 13. This is part number 14. This is kind of the lid on the top of the thing. It has the patent number and stuff on here for to satisfy the requirements for that. This angle will bend down about 45 degrees on this flange to match the one that we just bent the other way on the previous part. So about 45 degrees. Again, you can adjust it by hand probably when you get to assembling the tin set. Okay, that's the part number in that flange. Bend it down about 45 degrees. That's the only bend in that part. This is part number 15. This is going to fit. It's going to fit up from that surface piece we just did, that top, up against the diesel oxidation catalyst. If we come back to, I'm retrieving part number 10, and I'm going to use that as a template to bend part number 15. 15 has we're looking at the face with the numbers read correctly. C9515 has 3 holes in there. I'm going to bend that flange to match this one on part number 10. Did it too much. And then not enough. There. Just right. Okay, so that part fits right there on part number 10, and you got the angle right. This flange up here again at the top, that is a piece that has no, or a flange that has no holes in it. It doesn't screw to anything. It just goes up against the diesel oxidation catalyst, so you can bend it out just a little bit like that, but we'll spring load it against the diesel oxidation as it can to kind of seal up against that at the top. Okay, part number 15. This is part number 16. It doesn't have any flanges in it. This is simply going to fit up against the bottom of the diesel oxidation can. It's a circular can up here. It looks like a muffler, but it's not a muffler. And since I can't be sure exactly where that is going to be to fit tight against it, we'll fit this up tight against it, and then you'll just shoot screws through this into the piece underneath it to fit tight against that can. On the right-hand end, this is part number 17. We have the same thing. This is cut to the radius, or should fit around that can. It's about 13-inch diameter can. But this one has two flanges that will bend around 90 degrees to wrap around some of the other, the rest of the enclosure that we've made up there. And then you can slide it up tight against that can, and because it's hard to get screws in this face of it, I've made ears on it here so that we can shoot screws through these tabs on the end to be able to get into faces that we can reach. And when we assemble it, you'll see this. Okay, so those are actually the last two parts, 16 and 17 of the kit. Now, I'm going to try and go through the process of assembling this tin on the bench, and I strongly recommend that you assemble it into the same fashion. That way you get to look at the box, the enclosure, and we can make some notes on it that will help assemble it on the machine when you have multiple pieces and you're in that tight spot on the combine to put it together. It also gives you a chance to run screws into the holes ahead of time so that they're pre-threaded for you and they'll go in place easier when you get on the machine. So we come back to piece number 1 here. Kind of a fragile piece because it's got just this little corner here. So like I said, that piece is going to bolt up against the enclosure that case puts on now. Here, 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 here. This one will go around a bolt, and there's a couple holes down here to attach to one of our next pieces. This is part number 2, and I'll try and put the pieces together kind of in the order that they're numbered. This one probably, I don't know that we're going to have anything to attach to right away. Number 2 is going to come up underneath the turbo bearing here, but it doesn't actually attach to this piece, so I'm going to have to skip to part number 3. All right, this is part number 3. It will fit inside of part number 1, that long flange on this edge. And there are 3 screw holes here. Take it back, 2 screw holes here. And I'm going to start putting screws in these to hold it together. The screws I provide with the kit are number 2 square self-drilling, self-tapping sheet metal screws. Now the laser has cut most of the pilot holes for these so that we aren't drilling through the tin, but I've made the holes slightly smaller so that it does cut the last bit through and then threads in there. They work really quite well. They generally will stay on the bit so that you can put it on the end of the bit, point it where it needs to go, and run it in. I'd say if you're going to use a drill driver, and you're going to do that for most of this, set the clutch low on your drill driver so you don't strip these out when you put them in. Okay. So 2 screws hold that together. Part number 3 onto part number 1. Then I'm going to take part number 2, and he will fit inside part number 3. Now I've got 4 holes here, and this one will go underneath like this, and although I can line up, should be able to line up 4 holes there. I don't like that. It will line up. There we go. The holes line up. You don't necessarily need 4 screws to hold that together, but I put 4 holes there because those holes, the back side of this goes up against the compressor turbine on the thing, right up flat against the compressor turbine. And that turbine compressor housing has recesses in it, and we need to hit one or more of those recesses to clear the screw. Otherwise, the screw will push this away from the housing, and that's not what, nothing will fit. And so I put 4 in there so that you can hopefully have 1 or 2 options that hit a recess in that compressor housing. The other hole doesn't really matter. It'll be fine if we don't have to put a screw in all 4 of them. But hopefully you can hit 2 of these that clear a recess in that housing so that the screw doesn't push it off that compressor housing. Okay, so that's piece number 2 onto 3. Piece number 4 goes inside of the bottom of 2 and 3. Screws go in from the outside. That also means possibly trying to reach behind and get the screw in from the back side. That may or may not be practical. But we'll do one. I'll do one from the bottom first here. I'm changing my mind on that. I think this goes behind. If I've done this correctly, according to the, I don't have the computer model to look at here. This shows the screws going through the inside to the outside, and I don't know if you're going to be able to reach these underneath that turbocharger bearing. You may be able to go in with I give you a screwdriver that's about 1 foot long, and if you can reach back in underneath the turbocharger bearing and hit this hole, you can put the screw in from this side on the combine. That would be easier probably than reaching behind to put the screw in from the back. If you have to do that, the only way to do it is with this little tiny stubby driver that I'll provide you with in the kit. But I'm going to put 1 screw in there now from the inside to the outside like I did. And that's part number 4 onto 2 and 3. Part number 5. Looks to me like I bent part number 5 wrong. So I'm going to show reversing the bends on part number 5. It will fit, the angles of it will match up to part number 4, but I think I got 4 backwards, and that means I also bent 5 backwards. So I'm going to reverse the bends on this one. Test him against this piece until I get the angles correct to match that one. That's still not right. All right, I have piece number 5 here. I hope I've got it. I think I have got it bent correctly. I believe that's the way we first did it, or got it done correctly. There's a little bit of a notch in the corner of this one, and that one I'm thinking is the one that goes underneath here like this. Anyway, we put that behind here, and I'm going to put 2 screws in here. It looks like I neglected in the computer model to cut holes through this for these 2 to match the pilots. The outer pilot hole is there, the inner pilot hole doesn't seem to be there. So I'm going to shoot a screw through at least one of these. You may want to do that to both of them. These are made to go through from the inside to the outside. I'm hoping you can get in here with a long driver. The exhaust turbine is going to be right here, but get alongside it to put these screws in. Okay, that was part number 5. And part number 6 will go underneath. And there's a series of screw holes underneath that will pull that together. I won't put all of them in because I don't want to take that much time in the video, but you should put them all in. That was piece number 6. This is piece number 7. You should lie in, looks like I already used one of those screw holes. I'm going to back that one out and use it to tie this one in as well. Right, that was piece number 7. This is piece number 8. Piece number 8 comes in here. Looks like the screws were meant to go in from the inside to the outside of the enclosure. So you're going to need that long driver bit to put these in when you do it. You may not be able to reach all 3 of them, but hopefully you can reach 2 of the 3. This is piece number 9. It's one of these tabs that fit in the slots here. You're going to slide it in underneath some stuff in installation. It should go in there kind of like that. Perhaps I should have tapered those tabs so that they find the slot easier. I'll do that better next time. Once you slide that in, there's 2 screw holes here that you can use to hold it together. Okay, that'll bring us to the right-hand end. Okay, that end slides over. These tabs fit around the existing structure. You may not be able to see it. I'll do it off camera. I'm going to bring screws in from the bottom up through to attach this end piece onto the bottom tray here. And I think we can maybe be able to catch that screw hole there to tie these 2 together temporarily. I'm going to put a screw in here even though I've got a piece to go on top of this. It'll just hold this in place till we get there. Okay, that's enough to hold that together for now. That was piece number, I don't know what it was. It was probably 10. This is 11. So go on right here on the outside of this. Put it on its side here. Piece number 12 slides up underneath, so it does not go under the bottom of this. So all right, that puts 12 in place. Let's go to 13. Will fit underneath this tab that we didn't bend up here. You just bend it enough to slide that one underneath and over the top of the other tab there. And she lines up. Some of these have a lot of screw holes in. Once you get one screw in, the rest of the things start to line up. Okay, that's enough for that piece. Next is piece number 14. It's the top. I will pull this screw I put out temporarily in the corner. Pull this one in place. Okay, piece number 15. I'll lay this down. Alright, we've got the basic thing put together. I've got two pieces left. One of them is piece number 16. He's going to go on right here. Your diesel oxidation catalyst can is going to be right up here. These flanges will fit up against the sides of it, but we want to come up tight against it underneath with something. That's what this piece 16 is for. It'll sit on your slide up against the can, probably not, not much more than this, but to fit up against that. And then I'll have you shoot screws through the self-drilling, self-tapping screws through here. I won't put this one on because I don't know exactly where it's going to fit to hit that can. So 16 gets screwed on here. You've got plenty of, this is an open space here, so you can get at it with the driver to put those on. When we go to the other side, the opposite end, I don't know if we can see this or not. Maybe we can. Same thing occurs on the outside end here, but it's all but impossible to get back here where my hand is to put screws through here. So this piece has ears that wrap around this piece like this, and you can slide it up or down, and then you can get the screws through this flange and the flange on the other end. Those are easily accessible to put the screws in when you're on the machine. So that's part number 17, fits up tight against the bottom of the diesel oxidation catalyst can, that stainless steel thing that looks like a muffler. All right, that's the actual assembly of the parts for the tin set for the newest, to me newest, 2022-23 at this point model year, case 9250. I have not test fit this set of tin on a machine. I'm hoping to do that in the next week or so. If I find that parts of it don't fit correctly, I will try to modify those parts on the CAD diagram or CAD system so that we get them so that they do fit. But I hope that we won't have to change them in any substantive way, so that the video you've just watched will still serve to bend and assemble that tin on the bench. So that's the assembly part of it on the bench. The next thing I'm going to suggest you do while you have it on the bench like this, study it a little bit, look at how the pieces go together so that you can, when you get on the machine to install it, it's not magic or not different to you. You also can go around with a Sharpie marker and, for instance, mark where pieces overlap each other. This is going to be up against the exhaust turbine here, so you're not going to be able to reach that. But I would come inside, for instance, and where these pieces overlap, I make some lines so that you can line up those marks when you get on the machine. I'll do it here, even though you won't be able to see this probably, but you know, make some marks, whatever you do, so that you have alignment indexes or keys, whatever you want to call them, to put it together. When you're on the machine and you got a basket full of parts and you can't remember what you did to do this assembly on the bench, it's really nice to have, and you can use half a dozen different colored Sharpies if you want, just to make it that much easier. Here's a blue one, and you can make a mark there or a double mark wherever, so that you know which part lays on top of another one. Then when you're on the machine, you just match up the colored tabs. So I'd strongly suggest to do that. You can also write yourself notes if whatever makes sense on here in terms of this piece on the outside screws through from here to the inside or inside to the outside, whatever is helpful to you in putting that tin set together on the machine. Because believe me, when you're down in that hole between the grain tank and the engine, you're not going to want to spend any more time in there trying to figure this out than you absolutely have to. Let's see, this is the hole where your air is going to come in. That's a 4-inch diameter hole. We'll have a stub entry there where you can slide that in place, reach in and push some of the tabs out tight to fit it up against the inside, and leave some tabs on the outside, and then screw that down here. And then there's a HVAC Flex 90 galvanized fitting that'll come out that'll allow you to change direction of the air a little bit and then get onto the rubber elbow that goes up over the valve cover to get to your tube that brings the air into this point. So this is the kit for the 9250. This hole is going to surround the turbocharger bearing. The exhaust turbine's on the inside. The compressor turbine is on the outside. The hole in the back here is where we bolt up against the stainless steel box that Case currently has on the machine to enclose the exhaust manifold. Let's see what else. On the bottom, this is where that I call it a choke. It's the thing after the exhaust turbine that restricts the exhaust. You're going to go around that. They have an aluminum blanket crimped around that component right now to probably try and insulate it a little bit. You have this tab that you're going to open and close to get around that actuator that goes through here, and these are the tabs that help link this piece to this piece. You can reach underneath when you get them in place and bend these tabs down to lock this piece on there in lieu of screws, because it's hard to reach under here to get screws at this location. Okay. Don't hesitate to make marks on it to help yourself on the installation when you get in there. Run a screw in every hole when it's on the bench here so that they're all pre-threaded. Now these on the top are really easy to reach, and you wouldn't have to do that. You can certainly run the screws in when you do the assembly. But some of those that are on the back or the bottom, places that are hard to reach, you'll appreciate the fact that you already have a threaded hole there when you get on there, rather than having to reach under with my stubby screwdriver and try and thread a hole with that screw bit or that self-tapping screw. So that's the kit. If you have questions about it, you can call me, but hopefully this will help you get it on the machine. I do not yet have a video made as to how to install it on the 9250 because I haven't been on one. I do have a kit for the 8250 that is quite similar to this. There are differences, but the general pattern of installation is the same because that engine block is the same size as the 9250, even though the displacement's less. But the block is the same. The enclosure their enclosure is the same. So mine is similar, but it's not the same as this. So you can look at that video until I get one made for this one. I will try and get a video made to how to install this on the machine. But once you have it put together like this, you have a pretty good idea about what it takes to put it on. We've actually put it together probably in the order that you would put it on the combine. So you can use this as a guide. I'll also try to have a video made of the CAD model of this so that you can look at the CAD model, and I'll talk through that as well as this. But between assembling this and looking at the CAD model, you have a pretty good idea of the way the parts to go together. It's just a matter of how they fit around. There's no junk to go around when we're on the bench. When you're on the machine, there's lots of stuff to fit around, and it's not nearly as easy to put this together. But once you've had it together once, it should go together easier once you get on the combine. So good luck with your installation. I hope you have a safe harvest.